Welcome on in, everybody, to the All Aussie Rules YouTube channel. This is our Fremantle Dockers 2024 AFL review. As each team gets knocked out, we're doing a review on their season. What went right, what went wrong. Have a look at the stats, some of the players, and some reasons why they either went good or bad. And for Fremantle, it was a season that looked like it was going to be a good one up until the final month, but they fell apart and they missed finals. They finished up with 12 wins, 10 losses, a draw, and finishing in 10th before we jump into the rest of the information that we have here in this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. What did you think of Fremantle's season 2024? Chuck it in the comments below. Also, while you're here, don't forget that the podcast goes live twice a week, Mondays, Fridays, every week during AFL and AFLW season on Spotify and YouTube. What we're going to be doing in the off-season is yet to be determined, but we'll still have plenty of content coming your way. And also, don't forget to check out all the social medias at All Aussie Rules everywhere. So let's jump into it. 10th on the ladder. Little bit disappointing for Fremantle from where they were. We'll have a look at their season, match by match. They started in round 1 against Brisbane, and it was over in the West, and they got off to a really good start. It was obviously Brisbane's second game, having played the week before against Carlton. They got the 23-point win. They then went to Melbourne, beat North Melbourne by 26, and then had another home game against Adelaide, and won that by 35. So after 3 rounds, they were looking very good, in all honesty. The next 3 weeks were 2 weeks were unlucky, and then the third was a bad one. So Carlton at Adelaide Oval in gather round only lost by 10. Controversial finish, but perhaps could have won that one. Then the week after, they played Port Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval, only lost that by 3 points. Another one that they could have got the win in, but just couldn't quite get over the line. And then probably their worst result of the year, maybe second worst, very close to the worst though, was a 37-point loss to West Coast at Optus Stadium. They didn't show up. They just got beaten comprehensively throughout the game, and it was not a good result. Round 7, they had another home game, beat the Doggies by 24. Round 8, they went to Melbourne, comfortably took care of Richmond. Then they had a tough week on and off the field, especially off the field. So the 48-point loss to Sydney at home was a complete forgive. They kicked really poorly that day, but the stuff happening outside of football was excuse enough for a down performance, I guess. They then went to Melbourne, beat St Kilda at Marvel, and then looked like losing a home game to Collingwood, down by about 3 or 4 goals with 6-7 minutes to go, but came home flying. Ended up drawing the game and then beat Melbourne by 92 points to go into the bye. That was by far their best result of the season. It was an unbelievable performance. Offensively, defensively, in Alice Springs, they just really turned it on that day. So they went into the bye, in all honesty, looking really good. 7 wins, 4 losses and a draw. Pretty happy with their first half of the season. And to be honest, 7 weeks later, they were still pretty happy. So they came out of the bye and got smacked by the Bulldogs at Marvel, but that's not too big of a concern for them. They then beat Gold Coast, then went over to Sydney and beat Sydney in a nail-biter, which was a great result. Hosted Richmond and beat them. Went down to Launceston, lost by 13 points to Hawthorn, but it was a game that they well and truly were in. I think they were up by a few goals at half-time. Just couldn't put them away in the end, and Hawthorn got over the line. They then went back over West for 2 weeks in a row, beat Melbourne, and then got at least some revenge on West Coast for the earlier season loss. But in the end, maybe that loss early season was the one that cost them. So at this point, after the bye, they've won 5 of the last 7. They're absolutely cruising. They're looking at a top 4 position. They are sitting in top 4. And in all honesty, the fact that they don't make the top 4 from here is pretty bad. But the fact that they didn't even make the 8 is really disappointing. They went to MCG, had Essendon beat, and then lost by a point. Then hosted Geelong, went down by 11 points at Optus, and that was a little bit of a concern. Then they went to GWS, nearly beat them, but lost by 9 points. So across the 3 weeks, they'd lost by combined 20 points, but lost all 3 matches. And then all they had to do in the final round, they were the final match of the season. Carlton had already lost. All they had to do was beat Port Adelaide, and they were playing finals. Did they manage that? Absolutely not. They lost by 20. They played pretty good in the first half. They looked well and truly in the game, but as the game unfolded, they were just a little bit off. Hayden Young got injured, I think, in the third quarter, which really put a hamper on them. But overall, they just shot themselves in the foot all season. Their best, certainly really good. The Melbourne game, the Sydney win. They had some other good wins as well throughout the year, but just too many losses that were costly in the end. As I said, those 3 games, round 21, 22, 23, 20-point losses. 20 points total loss across 3 games, really costly. The loss to West Coast in round 6, round 4 and 5, while both at Adelaide Oval. If they win one of them, season's different. But at the end of the day, they miss out on finals, and they've only really got themselves to blame for it. A look at their last 3 years. 2022, if you remember, was a really good year for them. 15 wins and a draw. Finished 5th on the ladder. They won their elimination final before getting knocked off by Collingwood in the semi-final. They then lost a little bit of experience, maybe going into 2023, but 2023 was a disappointing year. 10 wins, 13 losses. Finished 14th on the ladder. This year, in all honesty, as we've said, they should have done better, but they finished 10th on the ladder, 12 wins, 10 losses, a draw. Used about the AFL average players, similar age and experience to most teams. A little bit under what most finals teams are, probably, to be honest, but another year of development might help them, but they certainly would have liked the finals experience this year, I think, for a lot of their younger players. A look at some of the stats. There's a lot on the screen, so don't expect me to read them all out. We're just going to have a look at some of the key things. I think 2023 was a real down year for them, whereas the 2 years either side were pretty good numbers-wise. Their defence has been great in both 2022, 2024. Their offence improved this year, especially from about round 10 onwards. They really looked good offensively in a lot of ways. But it hurts just that drop off at the end. Not even really playing that bad, just not doing enough to win a game. Most of their numbers, pretty much every stat across the board is better than last year's. But if you compare this year's stats to 2022, similar if not better in a lot of categories. Obviously, scoring 6 points a game more, but also conceding 9 points a game more. But I think that's kind of gone across the board in AFL from 22 to 24. Other than that, their stats look very similar from 22, but maybe even slightly better this year. Like, you look at metres gained, slightly improved. Contested footy has improved. Uncontested footy went down slightly, but that's not too big of a concern. Loose ball gets improved a lot. The clearance work this year, they were by far the number one clearance team in the competition, especially the first 15, 16 weeks. I think there was a few games towards the end of the year that they didn't quite do as well in the clearances as perhaps they would have liked. But to be plus, more than 7 a game, whereas last year they were minuses, and even 2022 they were only plus 2.75 a game. So that really took them to another level this year in the clearance game, led by Caleb Sarong, but also Hayden Young, Brayshaw, Nate Fyfe still was getting plenty of clearances. Their forward efficiency this year was outstanding, over 50%, one of the best in the league, and best they've recorded in the 3-year span. Their defensive efficiency was solid, pretty much AFL average there. Their tackling game is okay. The big issue, well, not an issue, but because they win so much clearances, they win a lot of inside 50s, they do tend to lose the intercept game pretty much every week. And we'll have a look at their scoring sources in a minute. But I would, before I go into that, the intercept game. They give up a lot more turnovers than intercepts gained. Here's the score sources now. From kick-ins, they don't get much, and this year they conceded a bit more than they would have liked. Almost 5 points per game is quite high in points against. Their points from stoppages, we're going to compare 22 to 24 because 2023 was just a really down year for them. Offensively, got 4 points better. Defensively, 2 points worse, so overall net of about +2. From turnovers, they have improved by +2 since 2022, and also gone backwards 3 points defensively in that time, so overall net -1. So they do give up a lot more turnovers, but they don't concede that often from them, so that is a positive. If you look at their scores from the defensive half, that's really improved, but offensively, but also has got worse defensively, so gone from 28.8 to 35.6 offensively, but also conceding an extra goal defensively from the defensive half. From the forward half has stayed pretty much the same across the board, and centre bounce much the same as well, not too much movement there. I look now at some of the players for Fremantle. These are some of the players that have missed a lot of games this year. Nathan O'Driscoll, I think, can potentially develop into a good player. He missed pretty much the whole season. Brennan Cox missed 14. Corey Wagner 11. Sean Darcy was a crucial player when he was playing, but just missed too much football. He missed 11. Sam Sturt missed 10. Tom Emmett missed 10. Alex Pearce, the captain, missed 8, which were all pretty much in that second half of the season. Heath Chapman 7 and Michael Walters missed 6, but his season was a bit down on most of what he's managed to do throughout his career. I don't think he even rates a mention in the next slide where we have the best players by position. So these are the highest AFL rated players by position. We start in the key defence line, as we always do. Alex Pearce, as we said, he missed a lot of games. He improved. He went from a 7.84 rating to a 10.07, so he had a really good season. He'll be disappointed he missed so much football, especially late. Probably a key reason why they weren't successful in the end in making finals. Brennan Cox, he went from 11.9 down to 7.8. Missed a lot of football though. So you'd hope that he can bounce back next year. Key forwards have switched around, in all honesty. Josh Tracy improved a lot, but Jio Miss dropped off only by 2 points, but just didn't look as good as he has previous years. He's got a long way to go. He's still very young, but they're both very young, so the future's bright for the key forwards in Fremantle. If they can keep those two together, they've got a bright future, I believe. Their medium defenders, Luke Ryan was an All-Australian, slightly improved on last year, according to the numbers. I think a warranted selection in the All-Australian. I believe I had him in my All-AFL first team. He was very good this year. Jordan Clark, he improved as well. He was really good. Heath Chapman improved. He was good. Corey Wagner was about the same. And Brandon Walker was pretty solid as well. Their medium forwards, Sam Switovsky, his best was very good. Ended up with similar rating as he had last year. I think he's a very good player. He had a few really good games. I think he against Sydney, when they won over in Sydney, he was really good. Bailey Bamfield, he improved slightly. Sam Sturt was solid. Michael Frederick probably dropped off a little bit. Didn't see as much development from him this year as previous years. Then their midfielders. Caleb Sarong's the big name that's the dominant midfielder. He improved again on already what he had been producing, which was really good numbers last year. Hayden Young was the big improver. He became one of their most important ball users, really, through that midfield. The others were more the clearance getters, and he was the finisher as far as midfielders go. His rating went from an 11.75 to a 16.14, which is a huge improvement. Andrew Brayshaw was similar numbers to last year. He's a very good player, and he showed that again. Nate Fyfe was down overall on his career, obviously, but slightly up on last year. Will he go around again? I guess we'll see. I don't think there's been an announcement on that yet, but a 9.4 rating is good enough probably for another year, you'd imagine. Jaeger O'Meara, maybe not so much. He's dropped off from a 10.9 last year to a 8.2, so he maybe needs to find a way to improve that up a little bit. Jeremy Sharp didn't get any games last year, I think, wherever he was. I think maybe Gold Coast, but had a pretty solid season. Nathan O'Driscoll, as I said, has potential. He looked okay in his couple games. And Matthew Johnson, more of a winger, similar numbers to last year, hasn't really developed much. Then their two ruckmen, Sean Darcy, he missed a lot of football, but he was really, really good and very important when he was out there. And Luke Jackson, he played every game, similar output to last year. He's a good ruckman. I think he's better. His numbers drop off a little bit when Sean Darcy's there because Sean Darcy plays the main ruck role, but I think it's beneficial for Fremantle when they're both out there playing together. A look at players that weren't at Fremantle this year but were the year before. Joel Hamling went from a rating of 6.7 last year, which is pretty solid. He went to Sydney, hasn't had a game though. A bit of a loss. 6.7's borderline to get a game for most teams, but not too bad. Liam Henry, his rating was 7.3 last year, and it went up to a 10.2 at St Kilda this year. So he really improved in his first year over at St Kilda. Obviously, would have been a handy one to keep for the Dockers. Lachie Schultz was a crucial small forward last year, 10.5. His rating was terrible this year for Collingwood. It dropped off massively. But that 10.5 would have been very handy for Fremantle. When you look back at the previous slide at their medium-sized forwards, where are they? There we go. They only had one person over the 10. He certainly could have got in there ahead of Bailey Banfield, Sam Sturt, or Michael Frederick. So a little bit of a loss there that they lost from their small forward line. They didn't have much improvement from the rest. Obviously, Michael Walters was also out there for a lot of games this year, and his rating was even lower than those four. So overall, they lost a little bit, mainly through Henry and Lachie Schultz. And I don't know if they really gained much from what they brought into the club this year. But we'll see. We'll see if that changes for this year. For next year, 2025. Fremantle Dockers, where do I see them next year? I think they're best. I've been on their bandwagon a little bit this year. I thought that they were a really good team, and they kind of let me down towards the end of the year. Their best is as good as almost anyone in the competition. I think they were in the top 8 teams this year. They just let themselves down at the end. But the problem with the football competition, the AFL at the moment, is that it's very tight across the board. Anyone from 1st to probably 14th, 15th can beat each other on any day, which means every match is very important. Those close games are very important. And in the end, Fremantle just didn't do enough to make finals. So they will need to improve. Not a huge amount, depending on what other teams are doing, but they'll need to find something if they want to play finals next year. I think they will make finals. They're going to be clearly the best team over in the West again next year. I think West Coast are going to improve, but I don't think they're going to improve enough. So I think Fremantle get one more crack at it before West Coast probably really do challenge them for that best team in the West. And they're developing. They're still not that old of a team. They've got very young players, especially through the midfield and through the key forwards are the big things. I think they probably want another small forward that's doing good. They probably want more games out of their key defenders, especially Alex Pearce. And they could be a team that pushes towards maybe top 4 next year. They were certainly a chance this year, but let themselves down in the end. But that's about all I have to say about Fremantle Dockers. Jump down in the comments below. Let me know where you think they're going to finish next year. I have them finishing 6th, I think, on current, where I think they'll be. Will that change over the next week, 2 weeks, month, 2 months? Probably, but before any off-season stuff, they're potentially going to pick up some good players. Some good players are wanting to go west to either Freo or West Coast this summer. So we'll see how that goes. But jump in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching. There's plenty more content on the YouTube channel, so go check it all out. Thanks for watching again. I said it twice. Catch us on the next one.